Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Tuesday to you. Welcome, welcome to Shakespeare Theater. Today we're going to be reading Act 4, Scene 3. I hope you guys are doing good with your social distancing, your self-quarantine, whatever we're calling it. I hope that you are taking advantage of the time. I said on the blog today, read a book. Sure, and I think I mentioned it yesterday. The book that you started at the beginning of the year, pick it up, read it. I mean, books I find are more fulfilling than many other things that you could be doing with your time. Don't get me wrong, video games are pretty fulfilling as well. But you can't do that all day, or can you? Well, anyway, read. Lightsabers are out. You know the coffee's hot. All right, let's get this party started. Act 4, Scene 3. We're in Juliet's bedroom. This is a short scene. We're going to read Scene 3 and Scene 4 today. The thing about Act 4 is that Shakespeare very intentionally makes the scenes very short. What that does is it increases the pace. It makes the pace go faster and faster and faster and faster if you can do scene after scene after scene. And you get this impression of kind of rolling downhill. Remember, Shakespeare's tragedies are more like a triangle like this, where right here is Act 3, right at the top. That's the crisis, also known, well, it's the climax, also known as the crisis in tragedies. So the crisis was in Act 3, when Romeo is banished. Mercutio and Tybalt are dead. That was the crisis, and now everything has been going downhill since. And so the faster things go downhill, the faster the pace is, and so Shakespeare picks up the pace in Act 4 with these short scenes. So Act 4, Scene 3, we're in Juliet's bedroom. Remember, she told her parents that she was ready to marry Paris tomorrow, but we know that Friar Lawrence and she have an alternate plan. Okay, Juliet is going to deliberately deceive her mother and the nurse. And in these beginning lines, she once again is using tons of verbal irony, dramatic irony. Okay, she once again uses language that is rich in double meanings. And so think about when she's speaking, what she says, obviously, understand what she says, but think about what she's thinking when she's saying it. Okay? All right, so we're gonna read this together, and then I'm gonna play a professional version once we get to Juliet's soliloquy. Okay, so bear with me. We minimize. Okay. Once again, we are in Juliet's bedroom. Enter Juliet and the nurse. Juliet says, "Aye, those attires are best, but gentle nurse, I pray thee leave me to myself tonight. For I have need of many orisons to move the heavens, to smile upon my state, which, well thou knowest, is cross and full of sin." Okay. So the attires are clothes. So she says, yeah, those clothes are good. But nurse, leave me alone. I have things I need to do. I have need of many orisons. Orisons are prayers. So she says, I have need of many orisons, many prayers to move the heavens, to move God so that he smiles upon my state. Meaning look kindly on my condition, which is cross and full of sin. Cross meaning perverse. I mean, Juliet knows. I mean, it's against the religious law to marry two men. Yet, that's what nurse has advised her to do. And so she says, it's cross and full of sin. Lady Capulet suddenly enters and says, "What, are you busy? Ho, need you my help?" Juliet says, "No, madam. We have called such necessaries as are behooveful for our state tomorrow. So please you, let me now be left alone. And let the nurse this night sit up with you, for I am sure you have your hands full all in this so sudden business." Okay, so if you cull something, you select it. So when she says we've culled such necessaries as are behooveful, meaning appropriate, as are appropriate for our state tomorrow, meaning our wedding, she has picked out, she has culled the clothes that she's going to wear tomorrow, the necessaries, the necklace, whatever else she's going to have on. She says we've picked those out, we've culled those. So please leave me alone. She asks both of them to leave her alone. She tells the nurse to go with Lady Capulet because after all, she says, your hands are so full in this sudden business of my wedding that you've suddenly arranged. Okay? Lady Capulet says, "Good night. Get thee to bed and rest, for thou hast need. You need your rest before tomorrow." So perhaps as Lady Capulet and nurse are exiting, Juliet says this first line, "Farewell. God knows when we shall meet again." It's such a tragic line to me. It's perhaps the last thing she'll ever say to to nurse and her mother. God knows when we shall meet again. For this soliloquy, it's a very famous soliloquy. Juliet is going to express many fears. She is about to take the poison, and so she's expressing the fears that she has as she is about to do it. So I want you to think about the specific fears that she lists as we have a professional read this for you, and then we are going to go back through it for some analysis. All right, so pay attention to this performance.
Farewell. God knows when we shall meet again. I have a faint, cold fear thrills through my veins that almost freezes up the heat of life. I'll call them back again to comfort me. Nurse! What should she do here? My dismal scene I needs must act alone. Come, Vile. What if this mixture do not work at all? Shall I be married then tomorrow morning? No. No. This shall forbid it. Lie thou there. What if it be a poison, which the fire subtly hath ministered to have me dead, lest in his marriage he should be dishonored because he married me before to Romeo? I fear it is. And yet, methinks it should not, for he hath still been tried a holy man. How if, when I am laid into the tomb, I wake before the time that Romeo come to redeem me? There's a fearful point. Shall I not then be stifled in the vault? To his foul mouth no healthsome air breathes in, and there die strangled ere my Romeo comes? Or, if I live, is it not very like the horrible conceit of death and night, together with the terror of the place, as in a vault, an ancient receptacle, where for this many hundred years the bones of all my buried ancestors are packed? O bloody Tybalt, yet but green in earth lies festering in his shroud, where, as they say, at some hours of the night, spirits resort. Alack, alack, is it not like that I, so early waking, what with loathsome smells and shrieks like mandrakes torn out of the earth, that living mortals, hearing them, run mad? Oh, if I wake, shall I not be distraught, environed with all of these hideous fears, and madly play with my forefather's joints, and pluck the mangled Tybalt from his shroud, and in this rage, with some great kinsman's bone, as with a club, dash out my desperate brains? Look. Methinks I see my cousin's ghost, seeking out Romeo that did spit his body upon a rapier's point. Stay, Tybalt, stay. Romeo, I come. This do I drink to thee.
Okay, so now let's go back through it. So she starts out with that tragic line, God knows when we shall meet again. And she says, I have a faint, cold fear thrills through my veins. Thrills in this context means trembles. There's a cold fear trembling through my veins that almost freezes up the heat of my life. Freezes up the heat of my life. And then she all of a sudden says, I need them again. She says, I'll call them back to comfort me. She calls out for nurse. But she's like, what is she going to do? What would she do here? And then she states, my dismal scene I needs must act alone. So this dismal scene, this scene in which she takes the poison, she must be alone. So she says, come, Vile, and she speaks to it. She looks at it, and she says, what if this mixture doesn't work at all? What if, should I be married then tomorrow morning? And she says no. She has a backup plan, we find out here. She pulls out her knife and looks at it and says, this shall forbid it. So if it doesn't work and she wakes up in the morning, she will stab herself before she marries Paris. But then she starts having second thoughts about the poison. Here she says, what if it be a poison which the friar subtly hath ministered to have me dead? What if the friar it isn't a poison that's just going to slow my motor functions for 2 days? What if it's actually poison and he's trying to cover up his dishonor of having married Romeo in secret? So she says here in this quatrain, she says, I fear it is, and yet methinks it should not. For he is still a holy man. So she knows he's a holy man. He wouldn't try to kill her. So she puts that fear to bed. So her first fear is that it doesn't work. Second fear is that it kills her. Okay. Third fear, she says, when I am laid into the tomb, I wake before the time that Romeo comes to redeem me. And she says, that's a fearful point, that she's going to be stuck in this vault. She's going to be stuck in Capulet's vault. Back then, it's not buried like with dirt. There's a stone building that they put their honored dead in, and she would be put into, it's called a sepulcher, and she says that I'll be stifled in the vault. So she's like, I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to breathe if I wake up before Romeo's there, and I'm surrounded by all these dead bodies and no air. And then she says, I stifle, I choke to death because of the foul air inside of that tomb. And she says, there I die strangled before Romeo comes. Okay? So next fear, she wakes up too soon and dies from asphyxiation. She says, or if I live, she says, is it not very like the horrible conceit of death and night, together with the terror of the place, the conceit, the imaginings, the horrible imaginings of death and night, along with the terror of being buried alive, being in this sepulcher, in this ancient receptacle. She says, where for these many hundred years the bones of all my buried ancestors are packed. So she's afraid that it's going to, the horror, the imaginings of what she's doing with all of her ancestors rotting around her, she is afraid that it's going to drive her insane. And she says, where bloody Tybalt is there festering his shroud, she pictures him decomposing in his burial shroud. It's that sheet that they put over people, not like a mummy, but it just kind of covers them. And she says, at some hours in the night, spirits resort. So she's afraid that it's going to drive her insane. The terror of the place is going to drive her insane. She's afraid that she'll be laying next to Tybalt and that spirits resort and will be out and about, especially newly dead spirits. And she says, it is not like that I, so early waking with loathsome smells and shrieks like mandrakes torn out of the earth, that living mortals hearing them run mad. So she compares herself to someone who has heard the voice of the mandrake. Mandrakes are mythical. I mean, they're real, but what they do is mythical. I don't know if you've ever seen Harry Potter where they pull the mandrake out of the dirt and it makes that horrible screeching sound. This is based on Greek mythology. So mandrakes were plants that were believed to grow beneath gallows where they hang people and to shriek as they were pulled up. That if you pull up a mandrake, it just shrieks. And if you've ever seen Harry Potter, they do a fantastic job with that. But what it does is it drives them insane. And so she's afraid that just waking up in the tomb with all those bodies around her, she will shriek like a mandrake and run around mad as well. Okay. Next she says, oh, if I wake, shall I not be distraught, environed with all these hideous fears? Environed means enclosed, surrounded by all these hideous fears. And she says, if I'm distraught, if I'm going crazy, surrounded by all these hideous fears, and I all of a sudden just start playing with the bones, I play with my forefathers' joints, I pluck the mangled Tybalt from his shroud, and in this rage, I take one of my relatives' bones and just dash out my own brains with one of my kinsman's bones. Okay? So girl's got some very serious fears here, right? And then she says, oh, look, seriously, she's looking and she says, methinks I see my cousin's ghost seeking out Romeo. So she imagines Tybalt's ghost looking for Romeo, who spit his body upon a rapier's point. If you spit a pig, you put the sword through it, and that's how you roast a pig on a fire. So when she says spit his body upon a rapier's point, it just pierced his body upon his sword's point. And she tells Tybalt to stay, stay. And then she speaks to Romeo, and she says his name 3 times for power. She repeats it as if it's a talisman of some sort. She says, Romeo, 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 here's drink. I drink to thee. She drinks the poison. She falls upon her bed within the curtains, and she falls back. So as we pick up Act 4, Scene 4, we're at another room in Capulet's mansion. Juliet has taken the potion in her own bedroom. There's some kind of a little bit of an insight into the relationship between Lord and Lady Capulet here as they are milling about getting ready for tomorrow's wedding, right? Let's see. Let me go to the beginning here. So Lady Capulet enters and says, with the nurse, she says, "Hold, take these keys and fetch more spices, nurse." Nurse says, "They call for dates and quinces in the pastry." Dates and quinces are both fruits, types of fruits, and the pastry is, he's talking about the pastry part of the kitchen. The pastry was referred to as the place where the pastries are made. Suddenly Lord Capulet comes in. "Come, stir, stir, stir. The second cock hath crowed. The curfew bell hath rung. 'Tis 3 o'clock. All right, so it's 3 o'clock in the morning. They've been preparing all this time for the wedding tomorrow. Capulet says, "Look to the baked meat, good Angelica. Spare not for the cost." There's different versions of who Angelica is. Some people say Angelica is the nurse's name. Some people have Angelica as a kitchen worker. The nurse says, "Go, you cock queen, go. Get you to bed, Faith. You'll be sick tomorrow for this night's watching." A cock queen is a man who does a woman's work. Okay, so she tells him to get in bed. You're going to be sick tomorrow. And Capulet says, "No, not a whit. What? I have watched here now all night for lesser cause and ne'er been sick." Okay, so he's basically says he's been up all night before and it never caused him issues. Lady Capulet says, "Ah, you have been a mouse hunt in your time, but I will watch you from such watching now." Okay, so this is a little bit of a line that's been up for interpretation. A mouse hunt is a woman chaser. So she says, "You've been a woman chaser in your time, but I'm going to watch you from such watching now." So perhaps the actor portrays it as he was flirting a little bit with Angelica, the kitchen wench, perhaps even a little bit with the nurse. And so she says, "I got to watch you." So we get kind of this banter between them. And Capulet says, a jealous hood, which is a jealous woman, he's saying about his own wife. Okay. 3 or 4 serving men come in with spits and logs and baskets. Spits for the meat. Spits and logs and baskets, supplies. Says, "Now, fellow, what is there?" The servant says, "Things for the cook, sir, but I know not what." Capulet says, make haste, sirrah." He exits the first servingman. The second one, "Fetch dry logs. Call Peter. He will show thee where they are." Second servingman says, "I have a head, sir, that will find out logs, and never trouble Peter for the matter." Exits the second servingman. Capulet's continuing to go around milling about, getting things done, getting things prepared for the wedding, being a cock queen, as the nurse put him. He says, "Mass and well said, her merry whoreson. Ha! Thou shalt be loggerhead." He's being jokes, whimsical here, calling him a whoreson, which means a bastard. Probably saying this more jokingly than seriously, but I guess it could be read either way. He says, "Thou shalt be loggerhead," which is like a blockhead. So, yeah. Anyway, he's just calling the servant a name. "Good faith, 'tis day. The county will be here with music straight." The county again is Paris. He's coming with the music, for so he said he would. I hear him near, because the music starts playing from within. Says, "Nurse, wife, what ho?" "What? Nurse, I say." And the nurse comes. He tells her, "Go waken Juliet. Go and trim her up. I'll go and chat with Paris. Hi, make haste, make haste. The bridegroom, he has come already. Make haste, I say." And they exit. So this is the end of scene 4. Scene 5 is a little bit longer when they find Juliet's body. So we're going to read that on its own tomorrow, and then we'll do a little bit of review of Act 4 tomorrow. So we will for tomorrow. All right, you guys work on the study guide. You can be doing this at your own pace, but if you do it, half hour a day as they instruct us to give you work for half hour a day, you'll keep yourself doing well. All right. So when the test comes, whether here or at Pope, probably it's going to be here. We'll probably use the CTLS system for the test, which is Cobb County's Cobb Teaching and Learning System is what CTLS stands for. So we'll probably be doing the test online. And so you should be keeping up with the readings, keeping up with the study guides. Eventually you're going to turn that study guide in digitally, just take pictures of it and send it to me, I think is how we're going to do it. So anyway, I hope you are keeping yourself busy. Read a book. Pause the video game for 30 minutes. Go read a book. If you want to get back to the game, get back to the game. But, you know, get all your work done first. All right? Be good to your parents, be good to each other, and have a great one. All right?